Russia demographics. Ethnic Russians comprise 81% of the country's population. The Russian Federation is also home to several sizable minorities. In all, 160 different other ethnic groups and indigenous peoples live within its borders. Although Russia's population is comparatively large, its density is low because of the country's enormous size. Population is densest in European Russia, near the Ural Mountains, and in southwest Siberia. 73% of the population lives in urban areas while 27% in rural ones. The results of the 2010 census show a total population of 142,856,536. Russia's population peaked at 148,689,000 in 1991. Just before the dissolution of the Soviet Union. It began to experience a rapid decline starting in the mid-1990s. The decline has slowed to near stagnation in recent years because of reduced death rates, increased birth rates and increased immigration. In 2009, Russia recorded annual population growth for the first time in 15 years, with total growth of 10,500. The number of Russian emigrants steadily declined from 359,000 in 2000 to 32,000 in 2009. According to the UN, Russia's immigrant population is the third largest in the world, numbering 11.6 million. Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Azerbaijan, Moldova and Kazakhstan were the leading countries of origin for immigrants to Russia. 196,000 migrants arrived to the Russian Federation in 2016, mostly from the ex-Soviet states. Russia is home to approximately 116 million ethnic Russians, and about 20 million ethnic Russians live outside Russia in the former republics of the Soviet Union, mostly in Ukraine and Kazakhstan. The 2010 census recorded 81% of the population as ethnically Russian, and 19% as other ethnicities, 3.7% Tatars, 1.4% Ukrainians, 1.1% Bashkirs, 1% Chuvashes, 11.8% others and unspecified. According to the census, 84.93% of the Russian population belongs to European ethnic groups, Slavic, Germanic, Finnic other than Ugaric, Greek, and others. This is a decline from the 2002, when they constituted for more than 86% of the population. Russia's birth rate is higher than that of most European countries, 13.3 births per 1,000 people in 2014 compared to the European Union average of 10.1 per 1,000, but its death rate is also substantially higher. In 2014, Russia's death rate was 13.1 per 1,000 people compared to the EU average of 9.7 per 1,000. The Russian Ministry of Health and Social Affairs predicted that by 2011 the death rate would equal the birth rate because of increase in fertility and decline in mortality. The government is implementing a number of programs designed to increase the birth rate and attract more migrants. Monthly government child assistance payments were doubled to $55, and a one-time payment of $9,200 was offered to women who had a second child since 2007. In 2006, in a bid to compensate for the country's demographic decline, the Russian government started simplifying immigration laws and launched a state program for providing assistance to voluntary immigration of ethnic Russians from former Soviet republics. In 2009, Russia experienced its highest birth rate since the dissolution of the Soviet Union. In 2012, the birth rate increased again. Russia recorded 1,896,263 births, the highest number since 1990, and even exceeding annual births during the period 1967 to 1969, with a TFR of about 1.7, the highest since 1991. Source: Vital Statistics table below. In August 2012, as the country saw its first demographic growth since the 1990s, President Putin declared that Russia's population could reach 146 million by 2025, mainly as a result of immigration. Largest cities. Ethnic groups. Russia is a multinational state with over 170 ethnic groups designated as nationalities. The populations of these groups vary enormously, from millions, for example, Russians and Tatars, to under 10,000, for example, Samis and Eskimo. Language. Russia's 160 ethnic groups speak some 100 languages. According to the 2002 census, 142.6 million people speak Russian, followed by Tatar with 5.3 million and Ukrainian with 1.8 million speakers. Russian is the only official state language, but the constitution gives the individual republics the right to establish their own state languages in addition to Russian. Despite its wide distribution, the Russian language is homogeneous throughout the country. Russian is the most geographically widespread language of Eurasia, as well as the most widely spoken Slavic language. It belongs to the Indo-European language family and is one of the living members of the East Slavic languages, the others being Belarusian and Ukrainian, and possibly Rusin. Written examples of Old East Slavic, Old Russian, are attested from the 10th century onwards. Russian is the second most used language on the Internet after English, one of 2 official languages aboard the International Space Station, and is one of the 6 official languages of the UN. 35 languages are officially recognized in Russia in various regions by local governments. Religion. Russians have practiced Orthodox Christianity since the 10th century. According to the historical traditions of the Orthodox Church, Christianity was first brought to the territory of modern Belarus, Russia and Ukraine by Saint Andrew, the first apostle of Jesus Christ. Following the primary chronicle, the definitive Christianization of Kievan Rus dates from the year 988, the year is disputed, when Vladimir the Great was baptized in Chersonesus and proceeded to baptize his family and people in Kiev. The latter events are traditionally referred to as the baptism of Rus, Russian, Ukrainian, in Russian and Ukrainian literature. Much of the Russian population, like other Slavic peoples, preserved for centuries a double belief, Deva Every, in both indigenous religion and Orthodox Christianity. At the time of the 1917 revolution, the Russian Orthodox Church was deeply integrated into the autocratic state, enjoying official status. This was a significant factor that contributed to the Bolshevik attitude to religion and the steps they took to control it. Bolsheviks consisted of many people with non-Russian, communist Russians and influential Jewish backgrounds such as Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, Gregory Zinoviev, Lev Kamenev, Grigory Sokolnikov, who were indifferent towards Christianity and based on the writings of German philosopher Karl Marx, with Marxism-Leninism as an ideology, went on to form the Communist Party. Thus the USSR became one of the first communist states to proclaim, as an ideological objective, the elimination of religion and its replacement with universal atheism. The communist government ridiculed religions and their believers, and propagated atheism in schools. The confiscation of religious assets was often based on accusations of illegal accumulation of wealth. State atheism in the Soviet Union was known in Russian as Gossetism, and was based on the ideology of Marxism-Leninism. Marxist-Leninist atheism has consistently advocated the control, suppression, and elimination of religion. Within about a year of the revolution, the state expropriated all church property, including the churches themselves, and in the period from 1922 to 1926, 28 Russian Orthodox bishops and more than 1,200 priests were killed. Many more were persecuted. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, there has been a renewal of religions in Russia, and among Slavs various movements have emerged besides Christianity, including Rodnovery, Slavic native faith, Ringing Cedars Anastasianism, Hinduism, Siberian shamanism and other religions. Currently, there is no official census of religion in Russia, and estimates are based on surveys only. In 2012, the research organization Sreta published Arena Atlas, a detailed enumeration of religious populations and nationalities in Russia, based on a large sample countrywide survey. They found that 46.8% of Russians declared themselves Christians, including 41% Russian Orthodox, 1.5% simply Orthodox or members of non-Russian Orthodox churches, 4.1% unaffiliated Christians, and less than 1% for both Catholic and Protestant, while 25% were spiritual but not religious, 13% were atheists, 6.5% were Muslims, 1.2% were followers of traditional religions honoring gods and ancestors, including Rodnovery, Tengrism and other ethnic religions, and 0.5% were Tibetan Buddhists. However, later that year, the Levada Center estimated that 76% of Russians were Christians, and in June 2013, the Public Opinion Foundation estimated that 65% of the population was Christian. These findings are in line with Pew Research Center's 2011 estimate that 73.6% of Russians were Christians, with Russian Public Opinion Research Center, VSHIAM's 2010 survey, 77% Christian, and with Ipsos Mori's 2011 survey, 69%. The most recent Pew Research Center finding was that in 2015 71% of the population of Russia declared itself Eastern Orthodox, 15% religiously unaffiliated, a category which includes atheists, agnostics and those who describe their religion as nothing in particular, 10% Muslim, and 2% other Christians, while 1% belonged to other faiths. The religiously unaffiliated divided between 4% as atheists, 1% as agnostics and 10% as nothing in particular. The study cited that during the communist era the government repression of religion was widespread, and due to the Soviet anti-religious legislation, in 1991 37% of the population of Russia was Eastern Orthodox. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the affiliation to the Eastern Orthodox Church had risen substantially, and in 2015 about 71% of the population of Russia declared itself to be Eastern Orthodox, and the share of who identified as religiously unaffiliated declined from a 61% in 1991 to 18% in 2008. Orthodox Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and ethnic religions are recognized as Russia's traditional religions, marking the country's historical heritage. Traced back to the Christianization of Kievan Rus in the 10th century, Russian Orthodoxy is the dominant religion in the country. Smaller Christian denominations such as Catholics, Armenian Gregorians and various Protestant churches also exist. The Russian Orthodox Church was the country's state religion prior to the revolution and remains the largest religious body in the country. An estimated 95% of the registered Orthodox parishes belong to the Russian Orthodox Church, while there are a number of smaller Orthodox churches. However, the vast majority of Orthodox believers do not attend church on a regular basis. Easter is the most popular religious holiday in Russia, celebrated by a large segment of the Russian population, including large numbers of those who are non-religious. More than 3/4 of the Russian population celebrate Easter by making traditional Easter cakes, colored eggs and Pascha. Islam is the second largest religion in Russia after Russian Orthodoxy. It is the traditional or predominant religion amongst some Caucasian ethnicities, notably the Chechens, the Ingush and the Circassians, and amongst some Turkic peoples, notably the Tatars and the Bashkirs. Buddhism is traditional in 3 regions of the Russian Federation: Buryatia, Tuva, and Kalmykia. According to various reports, the proportion of not religious people in Russia is between 16% and 48% of the population. According to recent studies, the proportion of atheists has significantly decreased over the decades after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. In cultural and social affairs, Vladimir Putin has collaborated closely with the Russian Orthodox Church. Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, head of the church, endorsed his election in 2012. Stephen Myers reports, the church, once heavily repressed, had emerged from the Soviet collapse as one of the most respected institutions. Now Kirill led the faithful directly into an alliance with the state. Mark Woods provides specific examples of how the church under Patriarch Kirill of Moscow has backed the expansion of Russian power into Crimea and eastern Ukraine. More broadly, the New York Times reports in September 2016 how that church's policy prescriptions support the Kremlin's appeal to social conservatives. A fervent foe of homosexuality and any attempt to put individual rights above those of family, community or nation, the Russian Orthodox Church helps project Russia as the natural ally of all those who pine for a more secure, illiberal world free from the tradition-crushing rush of globalization, multiculturalism and women's and gay rights. On April 26, 2017, for the first time, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom classified Russia as one of the world's worst violators of religious liberty, recommending in its 2017 annual report that the U.S. government deem Russia a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act and negotiate for religious liberty. The report states, it is the sole state to have not only continually intensified its repression of religious freedom since Ashraf commenced monitoring it, but also to have expanded its repressive policies, ranging from administrative harassment to arbitrary imprisonment to extrajudicial killing, are implemented in a fashion that is systematic, outgoing, and egregious. On April 4, 2017, UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Opinion and Expression David Kaye, UN Special Rapporteur on Freedoms of Peaceful Assembly and Association Mina Kiai, and UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion and Belief Ahmed Shahid condemned Russia's treatment of Jehovah's Witnesses. Many other countries and international organizations have spoken out on Russia's religious abuses. Health. The Russian constitution guarantees free, universal healthcare for all its citizens. In practice, however, free healthcare is partially restricted because of mandatory registration. While Russia has more physicians, hospitals, and healthcare workers than almost any other country in the world on a per capita basis, since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the health of the Russian population has declined considerably as a result of social, economic, and lifestyle changes. The trend has been reversed only in the recent years, with average life expectancy having increased 5.2 years for males and 3.1 years for females between 2006 and 2014. Due to the ongoing Russian financial crisis since 2014, major cuts in health spending have resulted in a decline in the quality of service of the state healthcare system. About 40% of basic medical facilities have fewer staff than they are supposed to have, with others being closed down. Waiting times for treatment have increased, and patients have been forced to pay for more services that were previously free. As of 2014, the average life expectancy in Russia was 65.29 years for males and 76.49 years for females. The biggest factor contributing to the relatively low life expectancy for males is a high mortality rate among working-age males. Deaths mostly occur from preventable causes, including alcohol poisoning, smoking, traffic accidents, and violent crime. As a result, Russia has one of the world's most female-biased sex ratios, with 0.859 males to every female. Education. Russia has the most college-level or higher graduates in terms of percentage of population in the world, at 54%. Russia has a free education system, which is guaranteed for all citizens by the constitution. However, entry to subsidized higher education is highly competitive. As a result of great emphasis on science and technology in education, Russian medical, mathematical, scientific, and aerospace research is generally of a high order. Since 1990, the 11-year school education has been introduced. Education in state-owned secondary schools is free. University-level education is free, with exceptions. A substantial share of students is enrolled for full pay. Many state institutions started to open commercial positions in the last years. The oldest and largest Russian universities are Moscow State University and St. Petersburg State University. In the 2000s, in order to create higher education and research institutions of comparable scale in Russian regions, the government launched a program of establishing federal universities, mostly by merging existing large regional universities and research institutes and providing them with a special funding. These new institutions include the Southern Federal University, Siberian Federal University, Kazan Volga Federal University, Northeastern Federal University, and Far Eastern Federal University. According to the 2018 QS World University Rankings, the highest-ranking Russian educational institution is Moscow State University, rated 95th in the world.